Okay, we're all set up now. It's the morning of the 26th of August, 1813. And let me run you through the setup. So I'll start with the Allies because that's pretty straightforward. They didn't have a lot of choice in their setup. They all have to set up within certain zones, certain areas, within range of certain towns. You've got all the Austrians out here, that left wing, and they'll activate throughout the morning. Now, for the time being at least, I'm just putting these little markers on here to show when they activate. There is a lot to keep track of. Different formations activating at different times. So in the short term at least, I'm just keeping these here to ensure that I don't, so that I remember when they activate, and so that I don't accidentally move anybody who shouldn't be moving. There are a number of formations you can see out in the far left and in the centre here that do activate at 6 a.m. So some of these are ready to go. But a lot of the forces will activate around 9-10 on the left here. In the centre, I have the right wing of the Austrian forces activating in the afternoon at around 3 p.m. And behind them, a lot of these Russian and Prussian guards, sort of further down here to the left, activating at 3 p.m. Okay, so shifting around to the right, we've got a lot of Prussians coming on. Again, some of these activating pretty early, 6:20 a.m. And early morning, 9:40, 10:20. These reinforcements, these Russians out in the far right, coming on at 9 a.m. The avant-garde activating at 6:40 a.m. But some of these not coming until 3 p.m. As I said, not many choices to make for the Allies here. It took a lot of time to set them up and find out where they all went, but that was the main consideration. They were otherwise just placed where they had to be placed. And I haven't really had time to think about approaches thus far. The only thing that I think the Allies need to be wary of in the opening turns is this French cavalry out in the far west. Most of the places are pretty fixed positions, they won't be moving too far. You may just have this roaming cavalry out in the west. Alright, we'll turn around and have a look at the French positions, because this took me a lot longer to figure out, despite the fact there are fewer French forces. It did take a long time to figure out what to do. So we've got some artillery out here on the heights out on the left. I'm already worried about them. It's an artillery battery and a French light battalion out there by themselves, with the Russian avant-garde approaching out here to their left. This is east, looking south now. Now, starting around here, it took me a long time to set up these French because there are so many considerations to make. First of all, I had pushed them way out, as I often do with a sort of forward defence, thinking they could just pull back and tighten this defensive ring, but the French are really stretched for command activations on this first day and in the opening hours in particular. And I was just thinking, reading through, that if they do get pressed in multiple locations, they may really struggle to activate to pull back. So I then thought, I reshifted my consideration and pulled the defences way back behind, in the town walls, basically behind the barricades. But that then exposes these series of redoubts around the city. And that presents a problem because they were then isolated. And of course the Allies are really trying to capture those redoubts as a victory condition. And I didn't want, as a French, the Allies to too easily take those redoubts. This is a great opportunity to slow down those Allied advances. So then my third consideration was, well, we'll try and keep close to the city walls, whilst also being in a position to defend those readouts, whilst also being in a position to activate if able and if necessary. So you see redoubt, 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 another one here, and number 5 over here. Supporting mainly the flanks of these positions are French infantry. You can see on the left here, another one on the right, on the left, on the right. Some guns set up here with some infantry stacked there as well. I think that's legal. Some infantry on the right, more artillery, more infantry supporting that artillery. Redoubt here, infantry on the left and on the right with more artillery support, and infantry on the left with artillery and some more infantry on the right. So every redoubt has support on its flanks. They're really only vulnerable from behind, very difficult to assault from the front, and that's why I've really tried to protect those flanks. The flanks, even over here, for example, you've got infantry on the right flank, supported by artillery and more infantry, more artillery. So you can see this sort of alternating series of infantry, artillery, with, of course, in just about every place, some infantry just behind the lines to be called upon if needed, and skirmishes out front, designed just to check and disrupt the Allied forces as they advance. So as they came into this redoubt, skirmishers will disrupt them. They'll be hit from the north by this Saxon battery over here, and another one actually further to the far left down here. This is Napoleon. He comes on at 10 a.m. I'll go through those in a moment. Okay, so infantry, skirmishers, artillery, infantry, infantry with these chevaux de frise. This basically makes it difficult to assault down these roads. They will. When the Allies get to this point, it's difficult to assault into this position. But it doesn't impede movement for the Allies moving out should they want to. Artillery, infantry, skirmishers, artillery, infantry, skirmishers, infantry, artillery. You can see here this sort of alternating series of positions, which I'm hoping will both disrupt, slow down, and then stop those Allies as they advance. Pretty sure that's been bumped a little. And as I said, these are the Allied forces that could potentially threaten. These are the French forces that could potentially threaten that Allied advance. Now I've already unlimbered the artillery out here. You've got great field of fire to a range of 8. So around here, any Allied forces that move in this area can be hit. And that artillery, that cavalry might take a wander just to harass those Austrians off in the distance as they advance. And again, some pretty weak forces out here on the far right. They won't be called upon for some time yet. Okay, so that's the initial setup. As I said, the French, all their thinking has gone into setting up these defences, and it did take me a long time to do this. I haven't done much thinking for the Allies yet. I don't know how they're going to advance. I think that will reveal itself in the opening 20 minutes or so as I begin to move these forces, see who is actually moving and where I actually have activations available. I haven't really put much thought into that yet. And here are all the French reinforcements. They are all coming in along this road. Various times throughout the day. There's going to be this steady stream of French reinforcements marching into the city. They're going to come, I think, along this road into the new town, Neustadt, and then across the bridges into the old town, and then they'll respond and head where they need to go. Another thing, this took me, I spent a long time sort of figuring out what to do here. Should I move into the gardens? Should I sit on the sort of hedges here? Should I defend the redoubt? Until I sort of double-checked what these all do, and whilst it looks really nice, it actually has no effect on movement or combat whatsoever, apart from, I think, this little building here. So this artillery basically is, I think, a clear range of fire, and it's a 14 range redoubt, so as probably the Prussians, possibly the Russians advancing through here, they can be fired upon by those guns. Okay, so that is, as I said, that's the setup. Still much to think about before I even begin to move these forces. But we're about to begin on the 26th of August, 1813.